Hello, fellow introverts, and welcome back to the Introverts Haven. My name is Megan, and welcome back to my library. We're halfway through 2025, somehow. Like, this year has flown by, and I also feel like I say that every single year. But this year in particular has seriously, I've blinked and we are somehow halfway through the year. I have also read more this year than many other years. So I'm pretty proud of that. And since we are halfway through the year, I figured that it would be good to do the mid-year book tag. So with nothing better to do on this very rainy afternoon, let's talk about the best, the worst, and the interesting books that I have read this year. So the first question in this tag is the best book that I have read this year. And without a doubt, that is The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. So I am pretty new to Kristin Hannah. I've only read a couple of her books, but both books that I've read by her have been phenomenal. And The Nightingale takes the cake as the best book that I have read by her, but also the best book that I have read this year. This book is following two sisters who live in France during World War II, and at a time when France is being overtaken by Nazi Germany. And these two sisters have very different ideas about how they want to kind of deal with this. One of them is like in full resistance mode and wants to do whatever she can to like derail the Nazis. And she's very vivacious and outspoken, and it sometimes gets her into a decent amount of trouble. And then you have the other sister who is much more calm, cool, and collected. She just wants to keep her head down and get through the war. But unfortunately, the war puts them in really, really difficult circumstances, as it did everybody back then. And essentially, they're being thrust into the chaos of the war on their home front, whether they like it or not. And brings up a lot of moral dilemmas in the process. This book really just follows how they are kind of handling the war at the time, and also kind of the long-term implications of the choices that they make during that time. This book was inspiring, it was heartbreaking, it was beautiful, it was courageous in a lot of ways, and I've never ceased to be amazed by, and by cease to be amazed, I mean by like the two books that I've read by her, by the level of development that Kristin Hannah puts into her characters. They are so well fleshed out that it's like, I'm just amazed, truly, at how she could make these characters so realistic and so vivacious, but yet also so down to earth and realistic. I don't know. I definitely adore her as an author. And I had to literally stop myself from using her and this book for multiple of the prompts in this book challenge, because this book really did hit so many. The point is, I had to refrain. I had to refrain from literally using this book for like most of this tag. I could not recommend this more. I think everybody should read this at some point. I listened to this book on audio and I absolutely adored it. I have never read actually Kristin Hannah books in just regular format, but I did buy a couple of her books to give it a go because like the two audiobooks I'd listened to, which were The Women and The Nightingale, were so phenomenal. Next question is new releases that you haven't read yet but want to. There's a lot, and I could literally go on and on and on, but for everybody's sake, I figured that I would just talk about one new release that I really want to get to quickly, and that is Julie Chan is Dead by Liann Zhang. I'd never heard of this book before. I haven't heard it talked about. I don't know any of the reviews on it, but I did find it in like, I don't know what you call it, like a book newsletter or something. When I went to the bookstore, they had this like magazine essentially with like all the new books. It felt very book order-ish, like from when you were a kid. And naturally I had to grab it. And this was one of the books that was in it. And when I was reading about it, I had to have it. And so I immediately went and picked it up because I have no impulse control, apparently. So this book is following Julie, and she is actually an identical twin. And her identical twin have lived very different lives because they were separated at birth. And somehow, I don't know if they've always known each other or if they recently just found each other. I'm not 100% certain. And her twin ends up dead. And Julie ends up finding her twin's body. Now, her twin and her, as I said previously, they lived very different lives. Julie, I believe she worked as a supermarket cashier, and her sister Chloe worked as a popular influencer who kind of has it all going for her. She's got all these friends, she's well traveled, and Julie would love to live that life. She's gonna essentially take over her sister's life, and that's exactly what she does. She pretends that she was the murdered twin, and she takes over as Chloe. However, because these two were raised pretty differently, she doesn't fit in as well as she's kind of hoping that she would. And also, her sister died under pretty mysterious circumstances. And so there's the question of, is Julie actually safe being her sister? Or is somebody out to get her sister, which now puts a target on her back since she is pretending to be her sister? This sounds so twisty and so fun. If I do not get to this book soon, I think I'll just perish. I think I will just perish. Look at the cover. The cover is really cool. If you can tell, I'm a very cover-driven type of reader. Maybe that's not a good thing, but it's the truth. And this is just so neat. Yeah, I'm really into it. The next question is the best sequel that you have read this year. And I'll be honest, I haven't read a lot of series this year, but one that I have is the Bridgerton series, and this is To Sir Phillip with Love by Julia Quinn. And this is following Eloise, and she is a spinster, and she has resigned her life to that, and she is happy to be a spinster until her best friend, who was also a spinster, ends up getting married. And so she decides that maybe she does want to kind of settle down after all. And the problem is nobody really is to her liking. She's not impressed by any of these people. She's gone to balls. She's done courting. She's had lots of suitors and just none of them have really struck her interest. But she's somebody who really enjoys personal touches and stuff. So she likes to send letters. And one of the letters that she sends is to her cousin's widow. They strike up a pen pal relationship. And she decides that she is just going to show up at his house and just see if the sparks are really and truly real or not. And while she is there, she gets to meet his children. They are not a big fan of hers at first, but it's just a cute story. It's every Bridgerton book that I've ever read has been decent. I think the other books in this series were quite frankly better, but this one was also very good. And I did rip through this relatively quickly. So next prompt is the most anticipated book release for the second half of the year. And hands down for me, that is The Intruder by Freida McFadden. Do I know anything about this book? Literally no. I knew that Freida was coming out with another book, but I didn't know literally anything about what it was about. Didn't even know the name, had to Google it as a matter of fact. But you can bet that I am going to pick it up the day that it releases because whatever this woman puts out, I'm going to read it. And because I know nothing about this book, I had to Google it. And according to Goodreads, it says, who knows what storm will blow in? Casey's cabin in the wilderness is not built for a hurricane. Her roof shakes, the lights flicker, and the tree outside her front door sways ominously in the wind. But she's more worried about the girl she discovers lurking outside her kitchen window. She's young, she's alone, and she's covered in blood. And that's all I need to know. Yeah, definitely going to be reading that one. It releases on October 7th, and you bet that it is marked on my calendar. Next up is... what is the next one? Oh, The Biggest Disappointment. Yeah. Crash Landing by Annie McQuaid. Was the book horrendous? Not really. But I had this book so hyped up in my mind. I was really thinking that it would be similar to The Unhoneymooners by Kristin Lauren or The Paradise Problem by Kristin Lauren, because I don't know why. I think I just heard tropical, getaway, romancy, although this isn't really a getaway, they're plane crashes. But the point is, it is a tropical second chance romance, and I expected it to be phenomenal, and it was just okay. And with a cover like this, and with the concept being as strong as it was, I was just really let down. It was okay at best. This book followed Piper and I don't even remember his name. That's how forgettable it was. And Wyatt. And essentially they dated back in high school and they broke up over something that honestly, if they just had basic conversation, they never would have broken up. And I think that's one of the things that I get really annoyed with in books too, is when people break up, but for something so trivial, stupid, or like as little as just stupid communication, it bugs the crap out of me. I can't. It drives me nuts. But essentially these two break up and he is related to one of her best friends and her best friend is getting married. The bride is having a destination wedding in the Bahamas and both Piper and Wyatt are gonna go. Their flight ends up getting canceled and so Wyatt, being in the military, is able to fly planes and he is able to get his hands on one and basically says that he will take Piper with him and he will fly them out there. And even though she's not thrilled about being in a tiny little plane with him, she is willing to do it because she wants to be there for her best friend. However, the plane goes down and they are stuck on this deserted island together until help can come and get them. Again, super solid plot, but just not executed well. Like the cover, you guys, this was so... I'm still disappointed about this book. Look at that cute little illustration. This book had everything going for it other than the actual writing of it. So yes, biggest disappointment for me. The next question is the biggest surprise of 2025. And without question for me, it is I Hope You Remember by Josie Balka. And the reason for me is because I'm not a poetry fan. I've never liked it. It's never been my thing. I had to study it, in high school and I cringed. I hated it. I hated doing it, hated reading it, never saw the point. And I first came across Josie's writing when she recorded some videos on TikTok, and then I decided to pick up the book. I fell in love with this book. This was so beautiful, so poetic, so relatable. And I think it just goes back to what I've always said, which is I don't think it's that people don't like to read. I think it's that people are reading the wrong thing. And so I don't think it's that I don't like poetry. I think it's just that I have always read the wrong type of poetry. And this book, stunning. Like I am also not a book tabber. I don't mark my books. I don't tab them. I'm just not that way. I never have been. Those are all the poems that I felt like were so beautiful. These are all of the ones that are just so beautiful to me. So I talked about this book on one of my reading wrap-ups and I read one of the poems from it. And honestly, I want to read another one because it's just so beautiful, genuinely. And even people who, like, I have a friend who doesn't read at all, and I read her some of these poems and she was like blown away. I almost put this as my favorite book of the year, but it was a toss-up. It was a toss-up between this and The Nightingale, honestly. So I figured this would be better for the biggest surprise, but let me read you guys this because it genuinely is beautiful. And I say this as I'm looking at my beautiful animal who decides to scream at my door every single morning because he needs to eat promptly at 7 o'clock in the morning or he will simply fade away. All 15.5 pounds of him. He's a big cat. Yeah. There will come a day when we will vacuum up the last of your fur. That was always such a nuisance. There will be no apologies about the state of the back seat of the car and no wincing after I hear the doorbell because of the roar of the barking that I know comes right after. There will come a day when I can stay out with friends for as many hours as I want without a care, and a night where there's no song and dance at the back door, where I stand barefoot in the freezing cold and try to lure you into the house so that I can go to bed. I will fill one less bowl with food, leave fewer lights on when no one is home. I will have fewer toes stepped on, and I will go on vacations without a second thought. But coming home will never be the same again. Walking in the front door will be deafeningly silent and boring and wrong, and the carpets and floors will look sterile. The silence will ring so much louder than the little charm on your collar, and I will never feel as special or unconditionally loved just for existing. I will still drop purposeful crumbs by accident and feel sad when they're not quickly consumed, and I will struggle for a piece of decor that looks better than your water bowl. The couch that we always wanted but didn't get for risk of it getting ruined will quickly lose its appeal. The one with a dent in your favorite spot will be the only one that we want. The little bite marks on the crown molding will be a cherished memory rather than an eyesore. And I'll stop being hung up on every last scratch in the hardwood, and I will wonder which scratch in the hardwood was your last. I will no longer feel pulled to go for walks in the rain or have a literal reason to stop and smell the roses. There will come a day when all of the things that I have complained about time and time again will get easier, and it will be one of the hardest days to ever come. Come on. Like, I'm tearing up just thinking about it because my pets are my babies. All of the poems in this book are like that. Like, they speak to you on such a serious level, and I am blown away. I'm shocked. I'm surprised. And I've decided that I do like poetry as a result of this author. The next question is my favorite new author, or new to me author. I'm not sure if this author has written anything else or if this is her only one. I really honestly should look into that, because if she has written other things, I have to read it ever since I read this book. And that is The Favorites by Fargo. And this follows two Olympian figure skaters who are trying to make it to the Olympics. I've been told that it's very similar to like Carrie Soto is Back, where they made it to the Olympics. They really wanted the gold. They didn't end up getting it. And then they decide years later that they are going to go back and they are going to try again to get it after what would be considered like the prime of their Olympic careers. And it also follows not just their return to the Olympics, but a documentary that's being made about why they had broken up to begin with, about why they ended up breaking up and the drama surrounding them personally and the Olympic Games that they were a part of. And I ate this up. I've been told the audio is phenomenal, but I just read the physical book and I absolutely adored it. It got me super into sports type books, which honestly I haven't really ever read before or been super interested in. But because I love this book so much, I just bought Deep End a couple months ago by Ali Hazelwood. Yes, I still have to get to it. I think I'm saving that one for the winter time because swimming is a winter sport. And I know that sounds odd, but if I used to swim when I was in school, and it's a winter sport. So I honestly might save it for like November-ish, just for that like nostalgic time. But we're not talking about that book. We're talking about this one. And it was phenomenal. And Fargo did a phenomenal job. And I highly recommend this. Next question is my new favorite fictional crush. And honestly, I haven't been super obsessed with any of the men in the books that I've been reading this year, which is super disappointing. But I am reading currently, about halfway through, and so far I don't hate Hayden Bennett from Once You're Mine by Morgan Bridges. And he is an attorney, and essentially he's got some colorful activities that he's a part of. Not only is he an attorney, but when he ends up losing a case that he is absolutely positive that the guy is guilty, he decides he's going to take him out. And so he kills him. And because he's very morally gray, he decides that he is going to go to the funeral. And while there, he sees the victim's daughter and immediately becomes very obsessive over her and decides that he is going to do whatever he can to be close to her. And she's nothing like what he thinks. And it's just a very obsessive stalker type book. Why am I into these? Why is this? I feel like this says more about me and the fact that tons of other people also buy these books and read them than it does about anything else. But he is very broody. He is very commanding. He kind of gives Christian Grey vibes to me, but like in a creepier type of way. But yeah, a lot of people like this book, and I do too. I'd probably read the second. I think I would. we'll have to see. I'll have to get through the rest of it to make that determination. The next question is a book that made me cry. And again, The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. I tried really hard with this book tag to pick different books for every single question, but honestly, there's just none that made me absolutely sob the way that this one did. And I still remember the moment, the moment that everything kind of came together for me when I was reading it, and I was driving down the road and I came into my house and I'm like sobbing, and my fiance is like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No." I'm sure not. And then I absolutely made him sit at the kitchen table so that I could tell him all about it. And we have this fun thing, my fiance and I do, where if we know that the other one's not going to be super interested in whatever it is that we're talking about, we're like, "I need you to sit down for 10 minutes and pretend that this is the most interesting thing ever." And that's what we do for each other. And he was great, and he listened to me absolutely rave about this book, and just as y'all are going to. So, or I guess you don't have to, you could always click off of this video. I really appreciate anybody who decides to stick around. So next question is a book that made you happy, and without a doubt, Firefly Summer by Morgan Matson. This book is so cute. It's a nice little middle grade that's following a girl named Rihanna. And Rihanna lives with her dad and her stepmother, and her mom died when she was very young, and so she doesn't remember a lot about her, and she's not involved with any part of her mother's family. However, one summer she ends up getting a letter from her maternal grandparents offering to let her come to their summer camp for the summer. And she decides that she's going to go and try to learn a little bit about her mom. But when she gets there, she finds not just grandparents, but she finds cousins and aunts and uncles, and they do all this fun summer camp stuff. They find a treasure map that they have to go and find, treasure left by somebody very important. They go swimming, and they have bonfires, and they have early morning cooking sessions with her grandfather, and where she makes coffee for everybody every morning. And this book just takes you immediately back to childhood, to summer camp vibes, to all of the things. It is so, so cute, and one of the best books that I read this year. It also was up there with I Hope You Remember and The Nightingale, because it was so cute. It was so, I highly recommend. If you want to remember your childhood and those summer camp vibes, this is the one. Next up is The Most Beautiful Book. And I also really struggled with this because publishers this year have been putting out some really spectacular looking books. And I went back and forth between so many different ones, but I eventually decided on Wildfire by Hannah Grace. I really want to get to this year, maybe in August. Maybe I'll save this one for next month. I don't know. I need to get to this though. This is so stunning. It has the most beautiful sprayed edges, and like the inside is also just really, really beautiful. I think the outside's really fun too. It's the sprayed edges for me. It's just so cute. And this book is following, I have to look because I haven't read this one yet, but it is following Russ and Aurora, and they end up having a one-night stand, and Aurora expects to just sneak away in the morning and never see him again and just take the great sex and move on. However, she ends up starting her new job as a camp counselor, and when she is there, she ends up running into, you got it, Russ, her one-night stand. So they definitely have some really crazy chemistry. However, there is a rule at the summer camp that there's no fraternizing. And so this is very summer camp vibe-ish. It is secret romance, kind of sneaking around. But yeah, I think this is going to be an August pick for me because this is so fun. Finally, what is a book that I need to read by the end of the year? And honestly, I struggled with this one a lot because there are so many books that I want to read. And I didn't know which direction to kind of go towards, but keeping with the theme of the sports romances, because I was really, really obsessed with the favorites this year, I decided to go with Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I have loved everything that Taylor Jenkins Reid has ever put out. I just finished Atmosphere. It was phenomenal. I also love Daisy Jones and the Six and the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Malibu Rising. So naturally, I thought sports romance, historical, let's give it to Taylor Jenkins Reid. So this is following Carrie, and she was a tennis star, and I believe her former record is about to be like hit or something like that. And so she decides that she is going to go back and train again and just crush it at, I don't know if it's like Wimbledon or... So yeah, similar to The Favorite, she decides to make a comeback, and she decides to come out of retirement and have her father train her and try to hold her place as the reigning tennis champ. I've never played tennis, but again, there's something about these sports stories that this year I'm really, really drawn to. And I definitely want to get to this one this year, preferably sooner rather than later. I really need to get to this summer. And this is such a summery book. Like, this has to be a summer read for me. And those are all of the prompt questions. I have been having a phenomenal reading year. I don't know about you guys. I have been reading way more books this year. I think I'm at book 36 for the year or something. 34, 36, something in that range, either way. So I'm super, super happy. I think my goal for the year was 55 books. And so at this rate, I am most certainly going to smash that number out of the park. And that makes me so excited. So, which is also extremely shocking because I have been busier this year than, truthfully, honestly, I think since I finished college. Like, it has just been insanely busy, but I have been absolutely loving the books that I've been reading, and I hope you will give some of these a chance if you haven't already. And if not, or if you have better suggestions or things that I definitely need to add to my TBR, let me know down below. I hope this year has been treating you guys well. And if so, congratulations. If not, take some extra time for yourself, do some real strong self-care, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.